Hello and welcome to this week's edition of World Today. In a new survey on US elections, it seems like the love affair between Indian Americans and the Democrats has really not come to an end. At least 72% of registered Indian American voters are set to vote Democrats. Also, in a World Today exclusive, for the first time, the Taiwan foreign minister spoke with an Indian news channel. Dr. Joseph Wu said in his interview that Taiwan and the world has to come together to contain an expansionist China. The US presidential election is less than 3 weeks away. A new poll conducted by Associated Press, NORC, Center for Public Affairs Research revealed that majority of the Americans are highly critical of how President Trump handled the coronavirus pandemic as also his own infection. Many do not believe the White House press releases on President Trump's health update. The opposition camp now has honed its entire campaign around this issue. Here's a report from the campaign trail.
US President Donald Trump's first election rally since he contracted coronavirus was held in Sanford, Florida on 12th October. He threw masks to the crowd as he approached his podium. There was no social distancing among the thousands in front of the Republican candidate for the American presidential election.
And ruin the lives of Hispanic Americans and all Americans.
Mask wearing too was spotty amongst the crowd. Neither was Donald Trump wearing a mask himself. In his hour-long rally, he tried to turn it into a full-throated defense of his handling of the pandemic, which has killed 2,15,000 Americans so far.
Now they say I'm immune. I feel so powerful. I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there. I'll kiss everyone in that audience. I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss. Joe Biden.
Same day in another rally in Ohio, Democrat candidate Joe Biden criticized the US president for his response to the COVID pandemic.
I have a plan to deal with this pandemic responsibly. Testing, tracing, masking, not politicizing the race for a vaccine. Plan for its safe and equitable distribution. Providing funding for PPE, the protective equipment, and other resources for schools and businesses to be able to reopen safely. If you notice, the president said when he was asked about his responsibility, he said, "I take no responsibility." That was a quote. I take no responsibility. No national standard has been set by this administration.
Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are trying to woo their voters with their plans and claims of handling the pandemic. The most respected infectious disease expert of America, Dr. Anthony Fauci, has now become the new target in this tug-of-war. One of the doctor's comments with regard to the entire White House coronavirus task force has allegedly been used out of context by the Trump campaign.
Obviously, there are a lot of things that are going on that you would prefer did not happen, like the ad, which put me in a political context, which I spent my entire career staying out of political context. That's not helpful. But I'm certainly not going to give up. This is too important a problem. I mean, I've devoted my entire professional life to fighting infectious diseases. This is an outbreak of historic proportions, the likes of which we have not seen in 102 years. There's no chance that I'm going to give up on this and walk away from it no matter what happens.
The US president didn't lose time to attack the doctor through his social media post in response. Neither did his opponents to highlight his misstep.
Most respected person in this area, in the country, referred to the president's announcement event for the Supreme Court in the Rose Garden as a super spreader event, publicly criticizing it. And how is the president responding? He's running a national ad here in Cincinnati and all across the country, quoting Dr. Fauci out of context. Dr. Fauci said back in March referring to public health officials, quote, "I can't imagine anybody could be doing more," end of quote, referring to public health officials. But Trump and his campaign, who are very much used to deception and not telling the truth, deliberately lied by putting Fauci in his ad, implying that Fauci was talking about Trump, saying he doesn't know how anybody could do any better. And Fauci, after he saw the ad, he went public. You've probably seen it on the nightly news. He came after that and he said, "I did not give permission for that quote to be used, and it wasn't about the president." And even after he said that, and the point, I listened to your talk, even after he said that, look what happened. They continued to lie. They said, "We're keeping it in the ad."
Are you doing this voluntarily, or did the president?
I'm doing it.
A poll in September showed 68% of Americans have trust in Dr. Fauci to provide reliable information on the coronavirus. It also noted that in a comparative study, 52% of Americans trusted Democrat Joe Biden as more reliable with information on the COVID pandemic, while only 40% showed the same trust for Republican Donald Trump.
As the elections are growing closer, there are many surveys that are being conducted. In a new survey, it seems like Indian Americans continue to love the Democratic Party, much to the chagrin of the Republican Party, and of course, contrary to their claims. Here's a report by Seema Sirohi from Washington, D.C.
Indian Americans are being seen as a crucial vote bank in the 2020 race to the White House. Both Republicans and Democrats are trying to woo their support.
Politicians are afraid to use the word union.
While an earlier survey had reported a slight shift of the community to the Republican quarter, a more recent one says they're back in the Democrat fold. The survey of 936 Indian American citizens by the Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies, Carnegie Endowment and University of Pennsylvania, done in September, suggests that the support of Indian Americans for the Democratic Party continues. According to the survey, 72% of registered voters are behind Democrat candidate Joe Biden, compared to 22% for President Donald Trump. Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, a woman of Indian and African descent, is certainly mobilizing voters for the Democrat ticket. The strong Indian American support for the Democrats is driven by core issues like healthcare and the economy. In response to a broad-based question on which party handled Indo-US bilateral relations better, there is a clear leaning towards the Democrats. The survey found 39% of Indian Americans said the Democrats were better at managing Indo-US relations, while only 18% said Republicans fared better. It's significant that 26% said there was no difference, while 16% said they didn't know.
The new findings come in the wake of the growing influence of the community between the year 2000 and 2018. The Indian American population grew by 150%. The survey also showed, very interestingly, that Indian American community, in this sample at least, thought that the Democrats are better at handling US-India relations. This, if you remember, has been the main plank of the Trump campaign, that they are better for India.
US President Donald Trump and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's bonhomie seem to have lost its sheen with the community. The survey counters the recent narrative that the strong Trump-Modi friendship and criticism of Modi's policies by some Democrats, including Harris, was driving Indian Americans to the Republican Party in significant numbers.
We will speak truths.
The survey establishes, perhaps for the first time, that it's not right-wing Hindus who are Trump's most ardent admirers, but Christian Indian Americans. Among Trump's Indian American supporters, 45% are Christian, 22% Hindu, and 10% Muslim. Presently, out of the 4.1 million Indian population in America, only 2.62 million are citizens, and the eligible voting population stands at 1.9 million, or under 1% of the total US voters.
Welcome back to World Today. Before we talk about Taiwan, China and India, let's take a look at other news doing the rounds from across the world in World at a Glance.
Thai government imposed an emergency in the wake of massive protests on Thursday, 15th October. But people continued to defy it, and several thousands gathered to demand political reform. Police erected razor wire and roadblocks to stop them. Protests continued despite heavy rain and government oppression. After 3 years, on 15th of October, US appointed Robert Destro the coordinator for Tibetan issues for the country. The position established by the US's Tibetan Policy Act of 2002 has been vacant since January 2017. The same day, head of the Tibetan government in exile, Lobsang Sangye, met Special Coordinator for Tibetan Issues, Robert Destro. The move is aimed to create pressure on China regarding the autonomy of Tibet and bring issues concerning human rights and forced labor in the region to the fore. Peru is known among world travelers for its large number of archaeological sites, museums and its famous cuisine. On Sunday, 12th October, Peru allowed lone Japanese tourists to enter Machu Picchu. He was stranded in Peru for 7 months since the country implemented strict travel restrictions because of the worldwide coronavirus pandemic. Later in the week, on Thursday, 15th of October, 17 archaeological sites and museums opened their doors across Peru. Another 9 sites will be opened progressively by the end of October. 6 others are expected to open gradually between November and January. Juventus striker Cristiano Ronaldo and MotoGP rider Valentino Rossi became the latest athletes to contract the coronavirus this week. They joined a long list of sports superstars who have contracted the virus since March 2020.
The coronavirus pandemic has not prevented escalation of tensions between Taiwan and China. The country that holds highest strategic priority for Beijing has increasingly felt authoritarian nudges from the Communist Party. In response, Taipei has found strength from Western democracies backing their cause.
Taiwan National Day was an eye-opener. In a polarized world, the more China tells the world that Taiwan isn't a country, its adversaries starts treating Taipei as one. On October 10th, Taiwan celebrated its National Day with much fanfare. President Tsai Ing-wen took the opportunity to spell out Taipei's position on Chinese aggression.
We have all been paying close attention to changes in regional security, from sovereignty disputes in the South and East China Seas and the China-India border conflict, to developments in the Taiwan Strait, as well as the Hong Kong version of the national security law. It is clear that democracy, peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific are currently facing serious challenges.
The Indian media reporting on Taiwan's National Day got a response from Beijing. In a terse letter, the Chinese embassy asked the Indian media not to refer to Taiwan as a country and said that Taiwan's independence is wishful thinking.
With a free media in India that reports on issues as it sees fit.
Taiwan and India are dependable and natural partners. Our countries share such fundamental values as freedom, democracy, the rule of law, and respect for human rights.
Taiwan's foreign minister too made his country's stand very clear vis-a-vis the People's Republic of China.
I'm being joined by the Foreign Minister of Republic of China, Taiwan, Dr. Joseph Wu. Many thanks for joining us here on India Today, Dr. Wu.
I'm very glad to be on the show.
How do you really see and perceive this entire aggression that we see from the Chinese side when it comes to Taiwan? And what are your expectations from the Indian administration, the Indian government?
This is a situation that we have been facing for decades. But in the last few years, the situation has been getting more serious than ever. The Chinese are using their economic clout and also their political power to pressure other countries to do otherwise things that will be very normal for other countries. And in this particular case that you mentioned, the Chinese seems to be threatening the Indian press not to report about Taiwan's National Day. But India, to us, it's just a big democracy, perhaps the biggest democracy in the whole world, with vibrant press and freedom-loving people. And pressing Indians or Indian press not to report about Taiwan's National Day is against our value. And we are very happy to see that the Indian press and the Indian friends disregard the Chinese pressure, and they celebrated our National Day with us. The fact is that Taiwan is a democracy, and Taiwan shares the same value as Indians, and we are very glad that the Indians are celebrating our National Day with us.
Taiwan is not the only country, although the world has woken up to how Taiwan has been suffering at the hands of China. But Taiwan is not the only country. India and Taiwan both have been at the receiving end of Chinese aggression. How then do you think both countries should come together to tackle and contain China's illegal claims?
I think this is a very important issue for us to deal with. If you look at the situation in this part of the world, Taiwan is not the only country that is facing problems in this regard. Look at East China Sea. I'm sure Japan also has plenty of problems in dealing with China. The disputed water has been being intruded repeatedly in the last few months. And in the South China Sea, I'm sure the countries surrounding South China Sea have also been seeing the same problem. And we also noticed the dispute along the India-China border. And therefore, you can see that we are facing the same issue. And that issue is the expansionism of authoritarian Chinese Communist Party. And we have to think about a way for democracies, for like-minded countries to work further together. We have traditional good relations with the United States, with Japan, and we want to develop closer ties with India as well. In order for Taiwan and India to work with each other in that regard, I think we need to start by thinking on how to exchange views or intelligence with each other on the situation that we face, and try to explore the possible areas of cooperation. And we in Taiwan have the full intention in working together with India, even though this is not a military alliance type of relationship. But I think for like-minded countries to work together in exchanging views with each other, to understand about each other, it's going to be very important. And it's important for Taiwan, and I'm sure it's going to be important for India as well.
In the supply chain resilience that everybody is talking about, how can Taiwan and the other countries come together to create that supply chain? We do know that Taiwan plays a very important role, is also a manufacturing hub, and is very critical too, and is a part of the supply chain already. But how can you play a bigger and a more important role? And how can other countries then not just talk about supply chain resilience, but also be a part of that supply chain resilience, including India?
I think this is a very important issue, and the international community comes to realization that the supply chain is a very serious matter for us to look at. If a critical part of the supply chain is in the hands of a country that has ambition to dominate the international community, that might not be in our national interest. And I think the same situation can apply to many other countries. And we have been discussing with other countries on this issue. Taiwan is an international hub for semiconductor and for other ICT manufacturing. And India is also a country that is big and getting bigger in software and the hardware production. And therefore, for Taiwan and India and other like-minded countries to discuss with each other so that our supply chain can be in line with each other, can be in our mutual interest. Let me just give you one example. TSMC is a global leader in the semiconductor, and they have some investment in China. But now they also come to the realization that they need to think about making investment in the United States. And I think it's going to be on that line that the international supply chain needs to be realigned so that we understand that the supply chain is not in the hands of a hostile country. After the trade war, or after the beginning of the trade war, and also the pandemic, and also the flooding in China just a while ago, there are many more Taiwanese who want to migrate out of China. Some of them are coming back to Taiwan. They make reinvestment in Taiwan for about $35 billion in the last year or so. And many of them are also thinking about migrating to other countries. And India happens to be one very prominent area that they can think about. And this is something that is being encouraged by the Taiwanese government. So in this case, Taiwan and India can really think about how we can work further with each other.
Well, Dr. Joseph Wu, we are only hoping and wishing the best to Taiwan, and seeing the kind of relationship that's growing between India and Taiwan, with the kind of tweets that we see from the president of Taiwan, from the Taj Mahal to Indian food that she's been tweeting about. It just goes to show that we are moving from one place of great ties to another, and we're only hoping that it only grows. Dr. Joseph Wu, Foreign Minister of the Republic of China, Taiwan, speaking exclusively to India today. Many thanks for joining us here on the channel. That's all in this week's edition of World Today. But before I go, I'll leave you with a video of US President Donald Trump dancing to the tune of YMCA at a campaign rally in Florida. Take a look at this video that has gone viral of the 74-year-old US President, and have a great week ahead.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.